They ask me who I am. Yeah. They ask me who I am. I told them I'm an Israelite. That's right, I'm an Israelite. They ask me where I'm from. I told them you can pick a side. We worldwide, I'm an Israelite. Whether through scripts or history, no, I can show you. In the army of Yahuwah's, oh boy, I'm a soldier. Yeah, they ask me who I am, I told them I'm an Israelite. That's right, I'm an Israelite. When I say Israelite, they say you Jewish. Look, don't be foolish. Come get a dose of this mental renewing. See how we brew it, it's just different. Like, for instance, first thing to know, bro, it's a culture, no religion. Talking the bloodline, they say we Jacob children. And yeah, that's a factor, but what really matter, how we living. Given that we gotta get with Seder, that mean in order. For that we got that Torah, some brothers we got Basora. Of course, and some don't believe, but that don't matter today. I ain't trying to throw no shade, as long as we all stay in the way. That 613, we coolin' like palm trees. A couple they got, yeah, ain't no fam, know what I mean. They ask me who I am, I told them I'm an Israelite. That's right, I'm an Israelite. They ask me where I'm from, I told them you can pick a side. We worldwide, I'm an Israelite. Whether through scripts or history, no, I can show you. In the army of Yahuwah's, oh boy, I'm a soldier. Yeah, they ask me who I am, I told them I'm an Israelite. That's right, I'm an Israelite. He said that we the light, got no choice but to shine. By the sweat of your brow, now you see why we grind, how we do, and we move to keep that ruach in our midst. When we eat, I got a list. Wanna build, break out them scripts. We don't hate and we don't diss. We ain't worried about another. He called us his firstborn. You get called us big brother. Look deeper and you'll discover. In your movies and shows, you've been exposed. What you know about those captured and sold. The Igbo and the Ashanti. Check out the history, never lost. Ain't gotta find me. Right where we meant to be, rebellion led to expulsion. Repentance fixed that. God gotta get back. I can call them big facts. They ask me who I am, I told them I'm an Israelite. That's right, I'm an Israelite. They ask me where I'm from, I told them you can pick a side. We worldwide, I'm an Israelite. Whether through scripts or history, no, I can show you. In the army of Yahuwah's, oh boy, I'm a soldier. Yeah, they ask me who I am, I told them I'm an Israelite. That's right, I'm an Israelite.
And we ain't saying this our salvation or nothing, but the Most High just put his name on it, so we represent. All praise. Shalom.
Yeah. Well, shalom, everyone, and welcome to another segment of YAH Conscience Radio. Well, if it's not YAH Conscience, it is not acceptable. Reshit, Naknu Rotim, Latet Kabod, Weshabak, Le Yahweh, Elion, Elohe, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. First, we want to give honor and praise to he or it that causes to be or exist. The most high power of Abraham, the most high power of Isaac and Yaakov. Welcome. Shalom, shalom. Chief Zabulan and Geberet Shalom. How you doing?
Shalom. All is well. Can't complain. It could be worse, you know.
I hear that. We're alive and well, though, right?
Okay.
Alive and well. The Most High is with us. Indeed. Today is going to be an interesting topic. And then I got a curveball I want to throw at y'all too, man. Just a little side topic, has nothing to do with the topic we have, but some interesting things said. So let's go ahead and get started. I see we got somebody in the back. Mona, I believe. Shalom. Stand by.
Hey, Simona.
Yeah, stand by. If you want to come in, towards the end, we'll definitely bring you in, let you speak your piece and what you think on what was said, on the ideas you might have. All right, so
The question is very vague too, by the way. But
Yeah.
why is it so hard being married? Why is it so hard being married? A lot of people might say, well, man, it's not hard. I've been married for 20 years, 10 years, 5 years. Um, I worded it that way, not necessarily to say that it's hard in general, but just based off a lot of conversations, based off a lot of years of learning from other married couples and hearing and even counseling a few. There's some intricate points in there, so it might be multiple parts that we're going to deal with this topic. What do you all think about this topic? Why is it so hard being married? Or do you not think it's hard being married?
Um, I do. Okay. Well, a lot of, I'm gonna put it this way. Whenever I have conversations about marriage, I will always say it's not hard being married. Like it's not hard obtaining a relationship. It's really not. If everybody had the same game plan, if everybody, go in it with the same mindset, it's really not hard. Unfortunately, we make things more complex and more complicated than it has to be. The only reason why I would think marriage would be hard is trying to keep up that compatibility that keeps us familiar with one another. Because when you've been because when you be married and when you've been married for so long, you kind of like change. You kind of like morph into a different person, a different person sometimes. So the hardest thing for me is trying to retain that was familiar to us while still, morphing into, someone else. For the better, of course. For the better, of course. But you don't want to stay you don't want to stay the same when you in a relationship. You want to change for the better. You want to grow. You want to progress. And I think that's the hardest part of obtaining a marriage is kind of like I'm not outgrowing one another. Especially amongst other things as well. But that's like one of the main things for me is trying to retain that familiarity with one another while still growing into your own individual.
Hallelujah, man, you always come with some powerful things. I'm telling you, we got a comment that I have to agree with. So there are so many different point of views on religion, lifestyle, etc. You want to know the best part of what I heard you say out of all of that, which all was wonderful, was that we're going to change for the better. We should go for the better. That part right there, a lot of people say, "Oh, we're gonna, you're gonna change and you're gonna what's the word I'm looking for? Evolve, things of that nature." But a lot of people don't pinpoint what you said for the better, to better both parties, to better the whole family. So I love that. Chief, what you got? What you got? That was awesome.
Absolutely. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to offer after hearing that, because it's pretty much in the same vein where I was going. But I will say this though. Likewise, like as the sister said, I don't think that that it's difficult to be married. Marriage is an institution. It's all it is. It's married. That's not hard. The hard part is being happily married. Because being married doesn't require anything except going down to City Hall, sign a couple papers, give them the extortion money. Here, take the money, give me the license, and that's easy. Being happily married and being happily married for extended periods of time, that's work, because now that's going to require everybody bringing things to the table. Not just what they brought to the table initially, but what's going to be brought to the table going forward. And like the sister said, as you begin to grow, and sometimes that growth y'all may be growing upward, but growing this way. That's always a possibility, or sometimes there could be growth here and there could be stagnation here, or vice versa. So there's a lot of factors that play into whether or not the marriage will be a happy one. You think about 100 years ago, 200 years ago, even in the very crucible of slavery, our people were known for, even in the worst conditions, be married 70 years, 80 years. And now, is that to say that they were necessarily happy? That could be argued. Circumstance. Right. I mean, how happy can you be in slavery? I mean, it's or Jim Crow. It's very, how do you maintain that happiness? And one of the things, unfortunately, and I've seen sitcoms that make jokes about this. I don't know if y'all are familiar with the Carmichael show.
I heard. I didn't even watch. Yeah.
To me, it's one of the. It might be in my top 5 greatest black sitcoms ever. It only lasted 3 seasons, but it was incredible stuff in it. But it was a joke that David Alan Grier made about divorce. His son and his wife were getting divorced, and he was like, "Divorce," and the mother was like, "Oh, we don't divorce. That's crazy." And he was like, "Yeah, that's right. We don't get divorced." He was like, "Black people don't get divorced. We suffer through marriage." And it was like everybody started laughing, but you realize the depth of that statement, that there's an understanding, whether good or evil, or good or bad, that it is normal to suffer through marriage. And again, that about being happily married, that requires work. And I think that when people get to a point where they begin to tolerate marriage or suffer through marriage, is because they've given up doing the work.
Hallelujah.
So
you about going to the rabbit hole of a question I was going to throw in there after you said that, but
no. So I don't. So again, I don't think. I don't think that it's hard to be married. I think being married is the easy part. Being happily married, that's where the work comes in.
Right. All right. Let's go ahead with the first. Question.
And may I add something before we go to this question? Something that Chief Zabulon said, like, I don't mind not being happily married, but I do mind if we don't have a healthy marriage. And I feel like it's a difference between the two. We don't have to be happy all the time, but let's have a healthy union. Let's have a healthy marriage, because a healthy marriage will require you to be communicative. A healthy marriage will require you to be, just to bring forth your table that will kind of like balance the better for the household, But I just wanted to pinpoint that, for the listeners that's out here, it's not always imperative or detrimental to strive for a happy relationship or a happy marriage, but it is detrimental and imperative to strive for a healthy relationship and a healthy marriage. I just wanted to put that out there.
I love the distinction. Definitely. All right. Nice. Let's go with the first topic of today. Y'all ready for it? Let's go ahead and go with the first one, man. All right, it's pretty long, but I'm going to read it. What are some reasons outside of money and infidelity that makes it hard for women to respect their husband? What are some reasons outside of money and infidelity that makes it hard for women to respect their husbands? Whew. I took 2 of them out that normally is the go-to. What you got? You ready? Get better, Sharon?
Dang. Well, without getting too personal, I just had a little hiccup in my household not too long ago with my Ish. And I can say that throughout the years, I kind of agree with some of his points that he had made, and it kind of goes back. It kind of revert back to, do I really respect him or not? For an example, not for an example, but I have a hard time retaining my lips. I come from a background of very expressive women. I come from a background where women could sit amongst other men and dwell amongst other men and have communion and have conversations and things like that. So I guess that kind of like that kind of manifested some type of masculine energy with me a little bit, that I can admit. But I will say that I can't respect a man, or it'll be hard for me to respect my husband if he has no self-accountability. And I had to really sit here and think hard on that question, because at first I was going to say a dishonest man or a dishonest husband. But I said, no, I'm not going to say that, because a dishonest man versus a liar is more like, okay, that's in your character. Like, that's engraved in your character. That's engraved in your spirit, your personality. Where a dishonest man, more so to me, it's like, okay, he did it this way because there's other variables that he didn't want to face, or it's other variables that he didn't want to deal with, depending on how the other person will react. So I could pull a man up, or I can pull my husband up and say, hey, you lied about this, you was dishonest about that. It's up to him to acknowledge if he's wrong or not. So that kind of, so at the end of the day, that's kind of like self-accountability to me. If you can't hold yourself accountable, then it'll be hard for me to respect you as a man. It'll be hard for you to respect you as my husband. Because it's a difference if you're dishonest. But when I pull you up, or when I say, hey, babe, you know, you was dishonest about this, and blah, 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 it's up to you to say, you know what, you're right. I was dishonest about that. And, you know, and just hold yourself accountable. So I feel like accountability, I feel like to really, truly know a man, watch how he holds himself, or watch his self-awareness about himself, or see how he holds himself accountable. That's my thing. Outside of money and infidelity, for me, I feel like if a man doesn't have self-accountability, then it'll be hard for me to respect that brother. It'll be hard for me to respect that man. It'll be hard for me to respect that man as my husband.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Accountability. We spoke on that a lot. So I like that. I like you placing that in there as your point, as far as what will make it hard for a woman to respect their husband. Lack of accountability. Okay. Chief, what you got? What are some reasons outside of money and infidelity that makes it hard for women to respect their husband or man? But you know, we deal with husbands over here and wives. Of course.
Right.
And we ain't hanging out with you for 4 or 5 years before marriage. All right.
I mean, to be honest, just from conversations that I've had over the years, and observations, whether they be personal observations or external observations, but things. To be honest with you, I don't think there's anything in what the sister just said, notwithstanding what she just said. Mm-hmm. No doubt. Mm-hmm. But aside from that, I've never seen any significant reason outside of money and infidelity in which that would make a woman hard, make it hard for a woman to respect a man or a husband or whatever. Only because when you look at the statistics and you look at the reasons for divorce, the only reasons that ever come up for divorce, money mm-hmm. and infidelity.
Yeah.
That's why I put it in there to make it hard.
Right. And now, with that said, I'm definitely not saying that there are not other issues, but I think that as men, because of course a woman's perspective is going to be unique, because of course, she's a woman. This is her vantage point. As men, we're going to have a little bit different vantage point, and how we view it. So there may be things that we might look at and say, that's not really. I don't see how that could be a big deal. Mm-hmm. Why would that be a big deal? But in a woman's mind, that might be the biggest deal. So from my perspective, as a man, from my perspective, I'm like, well, outside of money and infidelity, and just based on women, and I'm using that term very loosely at this point, in general, that based on what women have admitted to, what is deal breakers in relationships, and what can make them look upon their man differently, or look down upon them. Money, infidelity, and in some cases, issues in the bedroom.
I was waiting on somebody to say it.
No, I'm just saying, but
Yeah.
right, but I mean, but that's the only other thing that I've seen, you know, like, because I'm looking on a website, thanks to Kevin Samuels. He plugged this website called Black Statistics.com. So it has nothing to do with the U.S. government. It's Black people going out, doing the research, getting the stats, so that nobody can say, "Oh, that's the white man's statistics." Like, no, it's actually Black people's statistics. And so when you go into the reasons why you have the breakdown in these families and these relationships, that's why I kind of laughed at the earlier when I was like, wow, the wording that you used on the first question, because I'm like, those are the reasons, those are the two primary reasons why you see the lack of respect. Outside of that, I don't know. But then again, once the sister spoke, I was like, oh, yeah, that could definitely be a deal breaker as well. That could definitely cause problems if there's not accountability, even though I don't necessarily view accountability as simply a reason why a woman would not respect a man. I mean, it could also go an opposite as well, if there's no accountability on the other part. But outside of that, I don't know of any other significant reason for a lack of respect, or at least to the point where it would cause the relationship to become fragile. That I'll say that, because there's a lot of other issues that we could bring up, but these are issues that are not known to bring a relationship on the rocks. It wouldn't really make a relationship be in danger of ending or being, or divorce or whatever the case. These are more like pet peeve type of issues, as opposed to like legitimate reasons reasons for breaking down of a relationship. So that's really all I can give on that.
Well, I got a reason that I was thinking somebody might have said. All right. And I believe this is a huge reason. I don't know if a lot of men really speak on it. I know they feel it, but I don't know if a lot of them speak on it. So what are some reasons? I'm gonna give one, and this is huge. Outside of money and infidelity, that makes it hard for women to respect their husband. Not being raised or taught how to respect another man. Not being brought up and groomed as to respecting. Sometimes women don't have fathers in the home, so they're not taught that from a young age, and all the way from through their high school years, college years. All this stuff has been pushed in society, TV shows, whatever the case might be. And even Gabetta Sharon brought that out a little bit, said how her family, she was raised in that type of dynamic a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, and I'm not saying they didn't teach her. I'm not using her as an example. But a lot of times, a lot of people I've spoken to over these years and just observed in general, and even went through personally, not to speak on anything bad about anybody I've been with, because I don't do that. But what I notice is a lack of teaching how to respect a man in general, not even husband and wife, but just man in general. And that translates into relationships, in my opinion. And it translates into marriages if it's not dealt with. So a lot of times they're just not taught that. I'm not saying every woman, but just, in general, for the question's sake. So that's my answer. I think that is a huge answer as well, outside of the money and the infidelity. We got a comment too. We have a comment from, I think that Shadow got. Check out his music, man. A phenomenal composer, by the way. Try to find him on Facebook. His name is there if you're on the YouTube channel. But he says, or how a man handles disagreements too. I think he put that when Gabetta Sharon was bringing out her her thoughts. And I think that's amazing him saying it, because if a man, I would love for y'all to speak on his comment too. You know, and now I'm gonna flip it. If a man is not taught how to deal with disagreements, it could cause that same dynamic that I'm speaking of. You know what I'm saying? Some men are not taught how to, handle, tense disagreements and things of that nature. I know when I was younger, in my early 20s, I wasn't. I didn't know how to handle certain disagreements that I felt we shouldn't been disagreeing on. And I'm thinking in my head, like, what is going on? So in that young age, 23, 24, I shut down. I didn't have a man in my home showing me these things. I had to learn everything myself. I didn't attack, but it's not good for a man who's supposed to lead to shut down if he's supposed to lead, right? And then he says, infidelity and money are tools for survival. Now, infidelity is a learned behavior which displays lack of certain levels of education, because education is shown in behavior, but money is a tool for wealth expansion. Most women aren't taught how to respect a men either, especially in the Black community. Appreciate your comment. What's y'all thoughts on that and what he brought out? Any thoughts at all?
I was hearing what you were saying, Moray, and then I seen his comment about a lot of women weren't taught how to respect a man. I have to beg to differ. I had to play devil's advocate on this, because I've seen okay, so let me just ask this: do y'all agree that majority of the times women, we are pretty much groomed to be wives? We are pretty much groomed to be for our men. We are pretty much groomed to retain this information that or retain this type of education that our sole purpose is for the man, is for you guys. So this is why, Salika,
you ask me my thoughts on that?
I'm asking both.
I'll give a quick answer. My experience, even in my family, and I could bring if my family was here, we had these conversations, man. And long story short, to answer it, no. And I'm not gonna say all, because I don't know all women. I don't know all houses or families and things like that. But within my family, which is predominantly ran by our women, my mom will vouch. Me and my mom had this conversation. They weren't taught it. They weren't groomed it. They was raised by, my grandmother, who husband died when she was when my mom was 9. And the same type of situation with my great grandmother, and then my aunties. That's just a whole nother topic. So long story short, in my family, no. To give you a true answer,
I would probably no, let me take that back. Not probably. I absolutely agree with you that that women, and I'm not mean I say women, African American women generally. And and y'all know me, when I say that, I'm automatically pushing Israelite women to the side on this one. Okay. Because that's a different dynamic. We right. We have a completely different vantage point. Our women are working with way more tools, right, than the standard African American women. So what I'm about to say, understand that this is not talking about conscious Israelite women at all. Now, with that caveat, I absolutely agree with you, Maury, on that issue. I don't think, and the funny thing is that to say that women are not that they're not groomed to be wives, they're not groomed to be in relationships, in meaningful relationships with men. The funny thing about it is that this is not something that is coming from men. This is something that if we go online, look at the television shows, go all the way back to the 80s with a lot of these, when the whole I forget the brother. He gave a good point about it. When you look at The Color Purple and movies from that period onward, women have reveled in the idea that they are not the type of women that their grandmothers were or their great grandmothers were. They don't need men. They've reveled in that. This is not something that men came up with. You know what I'm saying? Women have said this is a new era. Not, you know, remember back in the days they'd be like, "Yo, I'm a '90s girl." Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I'm a '90s girl. We don't need men. You know what I'm saying? Whatever like that. And of course, men came back with the nonsense of, you know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, okay, well, you know what? We don't love them hoes, and it just became this back and forth. I don't need you. You don't need me. Whatever. But there's a certain reveling that women have made over the years, thanks to second wave feminism, where they don't need men. And once you say that you don't need men, now this goes right back to the respect thing. They don't. If a woman is saying I don't need a man, and she's going into a relationship with that mentality, and the man knows that, he automatically knows that this relationship is not going to work, because no matter what he does, he already knows that she doesn't respect you because you're a man. So this is what I'm saying, as far as the women have not been, you know what I'm saying, they have not been groomed for that, because they've been told the message that you don't need a man to be happy. You don't need a man to provide for you. You don't need a man to do any of these things. So once again, how can they be groomed for marriage when they're told that men are not even worthy of marriage? In fact, men are only good for one thing or two things. They're only good for money and the pipe job. That's it.
Okay. And I want to say this real quick, Chief. And I know Gaber Sharon wanted a point to bring out. I want to say, when I say what I say, everything I say live on here, I've spoken with the women in my family about, because I wanted to bring them a different mindset, to let them see certain things so they can vouch. They get on here and say, "Man, my son, he talks to us about this all," you know what I'm saying? Right. And it's helpful. And they did the best that they knew how. Unfortunately, what was brought or pushed or or embedded in their thoughts did not work and wasn't good. And it's not to take away from the men, but just to answer your question, it's a no, big time, right, in my family.
And mind you, and along the lines of what you said, you know, when we were on the other platform of Love Language, you know, I was very transparent about my family, my mother's side of the family. All of the women in my mother's side of the family. Oh, when I say all of them were man eaters. All of them.
I didn't even know what a man eater was until you. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, that's.
But I like
that's an old 80s that's an old 80s term or whatever. Like
I don't know. I guess my experience is different, because I'm hearing what you're saying, Chief, and you said you putting all Israelite women to the side on this vantage point. On this vantage point, you putting all, you know, conscious women to the side. But my experience is with both conscious Israelite women and non-Israelite or non-conscious women, if you may say that. Mm-hmm. I've seen women outside of Torah who was groomed for men. I've seen women whose parents groomed them to be wives one day. I've seen, as far as, you know, my household, my family, my father was like that. My father groomed my sisters at an early age to be wives. And most of my sisters still married from their husband since they was 15 years old. So my experience is very different, where, and this is why I can say that I have nieces that are like that. You know, I have nieces who are being groomed, you know, or are being taught the importance of their role in a man's life. So I guess I'm speaking from a different experience than you all. Okay. You know, because I've been around these collaborator of women who I've seen that are already being groomed, and that who are actually being taught their role and the importance of their role in a man's life. So I guess it's a difference of experience and a difference of livelihood. Whenever, you know, when I post that question, and I seen a comment, it said Judah Moshe Ben Yisrael. He said, "Where are these women at?"
I will say this.
They're not on social media. Turn the TV and social medias off.
You know what? Boom. I love
that you said that.
I love that you said that, because social media is something else. That's why when I brought up my example, I brought up just people I know. That's what I was about to say too. This is the last thing I'm gonna say before we go into the next the first song. And I want you to be able to comment on it after I say it too, because I don't want to cut it off after I bring this point out. My question would be to you: is this the women that and I know it's the women you know personally, but I'm asking, is it women on a large scale?
No,
is it,
no.
So when I'm speaking, it is I'm literally talking on a large scale.
I understand.
Since I first started talking to women at the age of, and don't laugh at me, people, 16 years old, you know what I'm saying, all the way to 37 years old. People outside of me, people that counsel, people I didn't even know that came to me, called me. It is on a large scale. That's why I said you was raised in this truth, and I think that's why Chief said what he said. And maybe the women, and watch this, it's always exceptions to the rule. I know families that that parents been married forever. And then you have 3 children. 2 children waited till they had sex. Waited till they was married till they had sex. And the other one had 4 different baby daddies. You know what I'm saying? My point is, it's exceptions to the rules, but on a large scale, that would be my question to you. Do you see what you said on a large scale?
No, actually, what I see on a large scale is what Chief Zabulin is talking about. Okay. We don't need men, you know. We don't need men. We don't need y'all. We independent. You know, it's a real big wave of femininity going on. Feminist going on.
Yep.
So I do agree on a large scale. No, I don't see it. I don't see it. You don't see many women respecting men out here. But I gotta bring the balance, like how you like Moray. I gotta bring the balance. You can't pinpoint that one part without counterbalancing on the other hand. So it's like, in order for a woman to respect a man got to bring something to the table in order to earn that type of respect. Or does he? Why can't respect just come natural? You know, why can't it just become common courtesy? Because, you know, but on a large scale, I just see a lot of women being the new providers, something that I had brought out last week. Mm-hmm. And a lot of men being comfortable and being complacent with their position today. And it's like the women, it's like we shifting, we trading places. You know, it's like we're trading places a little bit. And
well, let's hold it off. We got the next question is go into this. That's why I worded these questions specifically like this. Definitely love your energy, loving what you're bringing out. We're going to go with the first song. And the first song of this evening is Paradise by John Boy. Here we go.
Instead of me fulfilling my prophecy, I have to start one. Instead of me, doing a good job and carrying on the empire, I have to build one. And that's a hell of a job for a 21-year-old. You know what I'm saying? That's a hell of a job for any youngster, male or female, to have to build an empire for your family.
Rather sell hella drugs. Hell is a hell of a drug, I'm trying to tell you. Doodle around to me, 28, verse 28. Got my people going mad and they heart is full of hate. On the island full of idols and I'm just trying to escape. From night to the noonday, I'ma seek his face. Yeah, I follow rules and they not coming from man. When they ask me what I do it for and what's the bigger plan. Trying to make it to the paradise. 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 Your life going wrong cause you ain't living right. Your life going wrong cause you ain't living right. Trying to make it to the paradise. Trying to make it to the paradise. Okay, yeah, I like my odds, we can roll a paradise. You got a pair of eyes, but you lost your parasite. Your vision is corrupt with sinful parasites. You're not living right, but I'm not comparing lives, cause we all fell short. I'm just trying to reach the heights. It's just copying your paste from the book is what it's wrote. Got my mind on my goals and my goals on my notes. They'll tell you that you're wrong and they won't give you advice. And I see a lot of scripts be the flotation device in this foul life. I hire like the mama bird. Got my head up, cause I'm fed up. My judge is dreadful. I'm just dreaded up. Had a dry life, went to the water, had to wet it up. Before we take the stage, you gotta set it up. It's heaven for a G. Don't repent it, I don't know, man. I just keep paradise, to the paradise, trying to make it to the paradise. Paradise, trying to make it to the paradise, to the paradise. Your life going wrong cause you ain't living right.
That's right.
Your life going wrong cause you ain't living right. Trying to make it to the paradise. Paradise, trying to make it to the paradise, to the paradise.
I'm not saying I'm Jesus, but I'm saying that we go through that type of thing every day. We don't part the Red Sea, but we walk through the hood without getting shot. You know what I mean? So I believe God blesses us. I believe God blesses those that hustle, those that use their mind, and those that overall are righteous. I believe that your karma, everything that you do bad comes back to you. So anything that I'm doing that's bad, I'm going to have to suffer for it.
Yeah. Okay, find what was missing, now I'm on a mission. Now they saying they won't beef and I just left the kitchen. Pray the son, help me some, he the road to riches. Can I hold a little grace and I pay the difference? I ain't tripping, got my whole soul in the game now. They say, boy, yo, boy, you a lame now. Ain't switch lanes, whole direction change now. And it ain't no surprise what I'm about to do. Won't turn my back on his word, but I'm about the truth. Wow, there you go, salute. I'm a soldier in the truth, and you will be too if you knew just what to do. The camps and the camp list, shout out to the crew. The word for the nation, but the kingdom for a few. I just stay doing me, cause it's hard doing you. Cut your whole doctrine up with this katana. If you say don't keep the law, and we just trying to make it to the paradise. Paradise, trying to make it to the paradise, to the paradise, trying to make it to the paradise. Paradise, trying to make it to the paradise, to the paradise. Your life going wrong cause you ain't living right. Your life going wrong cause you ain't living right. Trying to make it to the paradise. Paradise, trying to make it to the paradise, to the paradise.
I think I'm me because of Black Jesus. I'm me because of God. You know, I can't explain why I shine and no one else shines. I think everybody shines in different things. And a lot of things I can't do. I can't play basketball like every other black person in America. But I can act. I know how to go to that true spot in myself because I'm there every day. I can be me. I can be whoever because I'm true to me. I can go to neutral easily. A lot of people, black, white, Mexican, young or old, fat or skinny, have a problem being true to themselves. They have a problem looking in the mirror and looking directly into their own souls. The reason I sell 6 million records, the reason I can go to jail and come out without a scratch, the reason I can walk around, the reason I am who I am today is because I can look directly into my face and find my soul there.
All right, man. That was John Boy Paradise. If you're just tuning in, this is YAH Conscience Radio. Well, if it's not YAH Conscience, it's not acceptable, y'all. So make sure y'all share, y'all like this video. Let your family and your friends know about it because we're going to be talking about a lot of topics. I like how Achot or Geberet Sharon ended it, wanting to keep that balance, But we got time, we got room. We're going to bring it on both the men and the women, because the ultimate goal of this platform is for us to bring forth these topics, try to bring forth some solutions, and see what we could do to better the community, to better the people. So, without further ado, let's go to the next topic. Now, before I read it, I'm just bringing out things that I've heard. This is not the case in every marriage. I just want to bring that out. Respect definitely is, though. Like I hear that a lot by men. That's why I made sure I put it in both of them as far as why the women will not respect outside of money and infidelity. And then Achot or Geberet Sharon brought out some great points with accountability. I've seen that too, to where the man did not cheat. He actually had some decent money, but he wasn't holding himself accountable to the things that he either promised to. He wasn't consistent. A lot of different things. That's why I wanted to challenge us with these questions, removing the top 2 things that people speak on. So the next topic is, what are some reasons outside of respect and being out of shape that makes it hard for men to desire their wife or desire their woman? What are some reasons outside of respect and being out of shape that makes it hard for men to desire their wife? Now, before you all answer, I know it's going to be some people that's watching, and thinking that's a carnal thought, but this is just reality. I got to bring this out. Whether you're in the truth or not in the truth, these are things that's spoken about. We need to talk about it. You want to start, Sharon? You want me to go ahead and give it to Chief this time?
I'm gonna be real quick on this. I'm gonna have to say her attitude.
Now, take your time, sis. Take your time.
Yeah, like a woman's attitude, it can be it can turn men off. It turns men off. We have a very nasty disposition about ourselves sometimes. I can say the outside temptations. Outside temptation. We got to consider that social media is different these days. I don't know if it always been the same, because we had we didn't really have a virtual life, a virtual life that years ago, like everything was always in person, hands-on. We was outside, where everything is virtually now. So it kind of seems robotic, right? So just like how it's a new thing with our women now, where we don't need men, we independent. It's a new wave going on with our women as well when it comes to physical appearance. So it's like, honestly, I'm gonna keep it real. Sometimes I feel like I'm in competition sometimes to keep my husband desire, to keep my husband attention, because you got, on a larger scale, you got women building themselves up. They call them builder bodies. Yeah. Right? They got the big boobs, big hips, big booties, like everything looks perfect, right? So that is another reason that can kind of like shun our men into not desiring their women too, is the outside temptations. And then we got to think about our attitudes, our mouth, what we say out our mouth, how we carry ourselves. We got to be mindful of the disposition that we display, even though, because I'm gonna be honest, like I can have a nasty disposition about myself, but I try not to display that in front of my husband. You see what I'm saying? I try to recollect, take time out for myself, or go to a different room, or leave out before I display that type of deposition about myself. Sometimes women, it's just like we go in for the juggler. We have no type of consideration of the time. Like how it says, the time and place for everything. We have no type of consideration of where we at when we cussing our husband out. We have no kind of consideration of who are in front of us when we display our nasty attitudes or our nasty disposition about myself. Being that, and I'm going to be 100% transparent, I just did a whole snap session in front of my children not too long ago before the show. And that I'm just saying, like, I'm just want to put it out there, like, that can be undesirable. Men like their women subtle. Men like their women gentle. A sharpshooter, don't get me wrong, but when men like their women gentle, they like their women more on the Slicker.
Said that's right. And what are we doing? That's right.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it. Like on a larger scale, we just got to be mindful of our attitudes, because I see on a larger scale, that's one of the main problems that men have with our women is our attitudes and our mouths, our inability to control our emotions.
Now we don't know
how to achieve that yet. Some women have achieved it, but we don't know how. We're not quite there yet, when it comes to dormanting our emotions. Just having our emotions bleed all over the place, that can be undesirable as well. Because a man can find another woman that know how to, he goes back to his wife that doesn't know how to implement such thing. That can be undesirable as well. So it's many perspectives, it's many variables that a man cannot desire his wife or woman. She could be monogamous. A man probably don't have the desire towards his monogamous wife anymore. Once he be honest with himself and say that he's polygamous. He's a polygamous man. Sometimes women with that monogamous mindset are undesirable.
You're stepping on some toes now. I want to speak on something you said. Then I'm gonna bring out a point Chief, if you don't mind, let you go after me, trying to switch up the order a little bit. You said something, and I think this is something that is healthy. It's actually healthy what you said. You said something about you feel like you are in a competition.
Mm-hmm.
I want to speak on why I believe it is healthy for us
to have competition.
To have competition, because we won't become complacent. You know, sometimes you spoke on earlier evolving. You didn't say evolving, but that's basically like, you know, growing. We're going to change as we continue. The longer that we are in the relationship, sometimes, and that's for the better, man. You said, but sometimes people do it for what's not the better, and they become complacent, lazy. They don't do the same things they did in the beginning. Not saying you have to, but they don't keep that same type of excitement, or that same type of desire, you know. So going back to this question, what are some reasons outside of respect and being out of shape that makes it hard for men to desire? So you spoke on attitude, but I think in addition with that, because that is correct in my opinion, is the competition side of it. There is a plethora. Let me say that again. A ridiculous amount of women in this world. And the first thing women think and men think in this truth is we're not being realistic. Yes, we're supposed to be righteous. Yes, we're supposed to do these things. But also in our literature, it also shows a lot of things pertaining to not only the inside, but the outside. And some of those outside things, as mentioned, is, in my opinion, it kind of smooths over that competition aspect that you was bringing out, making sure you're on top of your game on certain things. Because why? In my opinion, it's so many of those extra women or men out there, you know, that could catch the eye of your spouse. Not saying that's a good thing, but it's a reality. It's reality. So if a man is like the Akai said earlier, not knowing how to handle himself in disagreements, and he's snapping on his woman, and he's doing all these things to his woman and things of that nature, but then it's somebody else outside that's being gentle and things like that. He's not competing against those other men that's out there. I know I'm talking about both now. I need to stay on subject, but I'm trying to be balanced a little bit. He's not competing. You know, we can't be complacent and feel like, oh, I got this person. I think that that's one of the things as far as desire. And I'm glad you brought that out because you kind of helped me to go somewhere else with it. Competition is good. It's what makes us great or greater. Michael Jordan didn't become the greatest. I mean, some will argue, say LeBron, but he didn't become that way off of no competition. Larry Bird, Isaiah Thomas, Magic, they was killing him. And he had to step his game up. He had to see what he needed to work on to produce better. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to use competition. Thank you for that alley-oop.
Yeah, I don't want to compete with an insecurity as a burden. I don't want the competition to be only manifested because my insecurity has grown to such a great burden, if that makes sense. Like, just because, all right, so I see a woman that got bigger boobs than me or bigger body than me or bigger butt than me, then, oh, in order to keep my man happy or keep an eye on me, I'm going to go and get a booty twice as big.
No,
you know, and listen, we got to be careful because you don't want your man or your woman to compete with that spirit of insecurity as this force, as this driven force. Because I can say, hey, my man, he don't have money like how other men have money. So I feel that way about my spouse. He gonna go out and rob a bank? You see what I'm saying? Because eventually you start to feel insecure with this competition. So you want to be mindful and practice mindfulness that you are competing against you and yourself to be better for your spouse versus I'm competing because of another person. Even though it can be motivated. I don't want to say, I don't want to go back on my word on here. Even though like competition and other, having women, we know the statistics between women. It's like 7-1, 4-1, something like that. But you just want to be mindful and really tell yourself, what are you competing for, and what is the driving force behind this competition? Because you can lead yourself down a very dangerous road when it comes to being competitive. It's levels to it. It's levels to it.
Let me clear up what I meant, just so for the listeners, because I don't want to steer no one wrong. The competition that I'm speaking of is not to necessarily compete against what other people have, but it's to stay away from complacency. It's to do what you signed up for in your marriage. It's to grow, like you said, to get better. Competition, healthy, I should say healthy. Let me say that. Healthy competition is always good for yourself. You should only compete with yourself, and the ultimate goal is to become better than what you are every day. That's basically what I meant, because I get what you're saying when you talk about the big boobs, the big butt, and then it could cause those things. But that's another conversation, because in my opinion, because those are things that needs to be groomed with the young boys and the young girls from youth, and kind of letting them know certain things, keeping their self-esteem high and all that, so that they can only understand when you're speaking on competition, you're just speaking on improving yourself. So, Chief, what you got?
Okay, well, there were some other things I was going to talk about, but of course the trajectory has altered a little bit. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to go back to something that Gabert Sharon had brought out, as far as with men not necessarily wanting women to be so emotional and not having control over their emotions. And it was interesting about that statement, because it kind of was going into what I wanted to touch on, is that I actually used to think that a while ago. Then I started thinking, well, wait a minute. But if women are naturally emotional, if this is what I mean, and women even say this, that women are more in touch with their emotions, and if that's true, then as men it would behoove us not to try to change that, because you're talking about changing biology.
Come on now.
So women being emotional is not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's when the emotionalism goes completely against reason. So women are allowed to be emotional. Otherwise, they wouldn't be women. This is part of who they are. So it's not a matter of telling women that you can't be emotional, you got to shut that down. It's like, oh, okay, no, do what you do, but let's kind of keep it, in perspective. Like, okay, go ahead and just like with men, women look at men, and as men, we're not big criers. We don't cry a lot. That's not. It's just kind of not what we do. But a woman is going to be like,
man, I cry every day, Chief. No, I'm playing.
No, well, there's nothing wrong with manly crying, but you have individuals who cry. Like, even when women see a man, think about it. You hear women all the time talk about that. If they had a man who constantly cried all the time, just crying, right, baby crying. If you have women who feel that if they have a man who cries a lot and just cries and cries and cries, what do women normally say? Like, damn, I can't. Like it's a turn off the women, because even though a woman wants a man to be in touch with his emotional side, no woman wants a crying man. Like, just that like every little thing you cry, they're gonna be looking at him like, yo, what is wrong with you, dude?
Yeah.
Because that's not how men move. And likewise, men should not be expecting women to get out of their own nature. So it's not the issue of emotionalism is not the problem. The problem is when the emotionalism runs rampant. That's when it's a problem. Other than that, a woman should be alive. Absolutely. You want to cry? Go ahead and cry. Whatever. Whatever. But so I like that she brought that out, because I think that's something that that we make a mistake and trying to shut women's emotionalism down when this is part of their biology. Just like when you try to shut a man's masculinity down, you're trying to alter his biology.
Yeah.
And neither one of these situations are correct. We have to let people be in their biology. Now, with that said, going back to the topic of what are some of the reasons outside of respect and being out of shape that makes it hard for men to desire their woman or wife, and I go back to the term female masculinity. No man wants to have to. An elder once said that that a man who is in a relationship with a masculine woman, it can be likened to homosexuality, because you got two male energies
I ain't never heard
doing this every day, all day. That there is something wrong with that. No man wants a woman who is masculine, and we're not talking about a woman who's not. We're not talking about assertive women, because no, there's nothing wrong with being assertive. Yes, you should be assertive. You know what I'm saying? But being assertive in the context of being a woman, not doing what Tyler Perry says. I mean, not Tyler Perry. Well, it's all the same stuff. But Steve Harvey says, telling women to think like a man. That's dangerous, because now you have women who are getting into the male role, and a man is not going to be able to function with a woman who thinks like a man. That's gay. Just like a woman cannot function. Think about it.
So harsh though. You said that.
No, it's just. I mean, think about it. A woman does not want to be in a relationship with a man who's effeminate, who thinks like a woman.
That's true.
She's gonna be like, "What the hell?" Like she'll start feeling like she's a lesbian. Like, wow, like I'm in a relationship with a man who is thinking and moving like a woman in their feminine, in a feminine energy.
I gotta push back and ask you a question. I gotta push back and ask you a question with what you just said. I love what you said, but let me ask you: do some women? This could go for both of y'all. Do you think that some women, and I'm not talking about the women that's that has been groomed, like the better Sharon was talking about, and things of that nature. But I'm saying, do you think most women prefer that type of man to kind of what she was talking about? What was that topic you said? I thought wrong when you said the women
women are the new providers.
So not saying exactly what you said, but wanting to be the new, leader from a standpoint of wanting a man to be in that role that you're talking about. Do you think a lot of women want that, Chief?
Yeah, I mean, I think biologically they don't.
Right.
I don't think women because you can always see the kickback. You can see that, and this is where it gets complicated, I think, because on one hand,
only when it
biologically women don't.
When it benefits them, they might want that, but biologically and ultimately, they don't want that.
Right. That's what I was going to say. That biologically they're not. They're like because it doesn't feel right to them. Okay. It doesn't feel just like it doesn't feel right for a man to not be working, to not be producing. It's something wrong with that. So even though we might try to convince ourselves, like when women try to convince themselves that, oh, I got to go out and I got to do this and I got to take care of this and it sounds good. It sounds good when it's in a Terry McMillan movie, but in real time, women are getting burnt out with that. But they like the idea of having that, but it only works in a single, in a single scene. It doesn't work. It works, when you're a single woman and you're out making money and you're doing this or whatever. That works for that mode. But in a household, in a situation with a man, it's not going to work because the man is like, well, wait a minute, okay, so if you're doing this and you're providing on this level, whatever, then outside of the bedroom, what am I here for?
I want to bring.
Okay, good.
And it goes with what you just said about being burnt out. I want you all's thoughts on this. I saw this posted, and I would love to hear Gabet, Sharon's thoughts on this, and it kind of went with what you said with the burning out. Might not contextually be fulfilling of completely what you're saying, but I saw this today. It says, so you're telling me I'm supposed to keep my child alive, educate and play with them, and keep them off their tablet and TV, keep the house clean, keep my relationship alive, cook meals, and keep track of the bills, have my own career and aspirations and goals, manifest my dream life, meditate, go out with friends, and keep my friendships alive, because it's not all about being a mom. Be a size 8 and walk 10,000 steps a day and work out 5 times a week and eat healthily. Is that a word? And do all that on 4 hours of sleep. Cool. What's your take on that? What's your take on that?
You know my take. This is why this is for this very reason alone. This is why I'm pro poly. This is why I'm pro community, pro village, because if you look at it, a lot of our foremothers had assistants. Look at all the stories in Torah. We had assistants, we had a community, we had a village, you know. So yes, a woman can be burnt out doing this by herself, doing this, doing that, doing this duty in her household without without any type of assistance that is assisting her to do these things for the household. Yeah. So I've been there. This is why I'm pro poly now. I've been through this by myself, and I say, you know what? This is not the way to be. This is not how we are supposed to function as a community. You know, this is something like it's something else has to be put in place for the replenishment, for the progress, for the success of a household, of a community, of a village. We have to keep that. We had to keep that repetitive cycle going as far as assistance going on. And a lot of people don't like it because they feel like it's always some type of sexual intimacy that has to take place in order to be pro-party or in order to be pro-community or pro-village, you know? Mm-hmm. It doesn't always have to result that way. You know, we got to unlearn that. We have to unlearn that.
Hallelujah. Chief, I cut your wisdom, man. I'm going to let you go ahead and finish before we move on. I know I cut your wisdom in the middle of it.
Yeah, I kind of forgot what the point that I was eventually getting to, but just to wrap up that point, as far as with feminine masculinity, again, man, contrary to popular belief, it is possible for women to go out, make their money, do these things and still be feminine and still have that natural femininity. So, and I think what has happened in this culture where toxic masculinity has now become, the go-to platform. I think that we have to realize that, again, women can do what they do as far as providing, because it didn't stop our women doing it 100 years ago when they was going out, most of the time, making the bulk of the money, scrubbing white people floors and, feeding their brats and things of that nature, doing those things and providing for their house. It was never that. The fact that they were doing these things was never a front to their husband, who, let's say, might have not been able to have work. It was never a front to him. This is why you don't see divorce rates like this 100 years ago, because it was understood that, listen, whatever you're out there doing, okay, go out there, get it, get that bread. I'm gonna get over here and do what I gotta do. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to elevating the household. So there was never a competition in those days. It was like, yo, if you can make more money doing that, go do it. I'm gonna go over here and do this, and we're gonna all bring it back to the table. So there was always an understanding that a woman could do what she has to do and still be feminine. She could still be a woman, but do what she has to do to earn what she needs to earn. Proverbs 31 is a prime example of that. The woman is out there is getting busy, and what? You don't read where the man is like, oh, she thinks she's a man. No, the husband is out there at the gates with the other elders, probably like, yeah, you see her getting busy. You see her doing her thing, no doubt. The children are happy. He's happy. The community is like, yeah, that's a good woman, that's a great woman. And at no point in time has her femininity been brought into question. But but again, in this time period, women are not being told to, seek out a career and do these things as women. They're being told to do these things to usurp the man altogether, to usurp him. So now it's not about being a feminine woman and still going out and doing the job. It's about, no, we're going to replace the men. And they're being told this in one ear. In the other ear, they're being told, you should think like a man. So you got these two messages. You got the message that a woman should think like a man, and then you got the woman being told by society that you don't need a man. So what happens? The woman becomes the man, and she now starts exhibiting masculine traits. She starts moving masculine, always wanting to be. And so once you're dealing with masculine femininity, if you're in a relationship with a man and he's not a beta male, he's not going to want any parts of that relationship because it's going to smell like a gay relationship. Because it's going to be like, yo, it's like I'm talking to a man. When they open their mouths, the voice gets more deeper. You know what I'm saying? The chest starts poking out more. And it's almost like you're like, yo, am I talking to a woman or am I talking to a dude? And if I think I'm talking to a dude, I'm out. And again, this is not a one-sided situation, because if you put it on the flip side, a woman who is with a man and this man is effeminate and he speaks like, he's just whatever. Eventually she's going to be like, why am I with this guy? Yeah. In fact, I don't even know if he's a guy. You know what I'm saying? It's a complete turnoff. So that's what I'm saying. As far as these are the things that I think, outside of respect and being out of shape, that's what makes it hard for men to desire the women wife. I think it has a lot to do with masculine femininity. That's the one of the things that men don't want. At least alpha and sigma males want no parts of. They don't want no parts of masculine femininity.
Hallelujah. For those that's just tuning in, I see that Nasik Israel, Prince Israel, was asking what we doing. Not sure if you caught the topic. So this second topic, we went through one topic, and the first topic was what are some reasons outside of money and infidelity, because those are the major reasons that makes it hard for women to respect their husband. So we spoke on that. This particular one, which I love, how Chief Zeb drove that point in. This one said, what are some reasons outside of respect and being out of shape? Because those are some reasons that I've heard over my time period that makes it hard for men to desire their wife. The better Sharon brought out attitude, which kind of is parallel in the sense to what Chief Zabulan was bringing out. Because attitude can translate into masculinity depending on what type of attitude is being demonstrated. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and play the next song, and then we're going to go into the last topic of this evening. So stay tuned. So the next song we're going to play is called No Pressure, and it's by Maury Maccabee.
They don't want to see me make it. They just want to see me aching. I ain't folding, I ain't breaking. No pressure. You ain't no pressure to me. No pressure. You ain't no pressure to me. No pressure. You ain't no pressure to me. You ain't no pressure to me.
Weight on my shoulders, back against the wall. I gotta show my sons the way that they should walk and make a way. I gotta make a way. I keep the healing, and they know it's safe to stay. Pray for me, somebody pray for me. I chose my walk, I'm gonna stick to it faithfully. Bossing the blazing, I've been bossing, saucing up. I've been down too long, and just ain't the way for me. Switch it up. I had to switch up an opportunity. They called me and I pick up. I fell down so many times I had to get up. Regardless of how tough it get, I won't give up. I went searching for the light. I got lit up, I'm on top of Mount Sinai with my chin up. up, I'm learning how to fly. I had to get rid of the talkers. I'm with the walkers in the sprinter, no pressure to me, no resting for me. I'm being me, who you destined to be. I woke up, yeah, that's a blessing to me. If I take a loss, that's a lesson to me. Progression, I keep a guessing. I've been on go in the recession. I've been 100 since an adolescent. My son is my antidepressant. I ain't about the present, I'm going back to the east. What's a holiday? Going back to the feast. It's a cold war, I'm going back to the heat. If I go to war, I'm coming back with peace. Silverback going be straight up gorilla mode. You couldn't stop me when I was not in my zone. You can't break me like I made a silicone. Walking on water, boy, you cannot swim alone. Me floats to sit up on, I'm on another level. You can't stop me, my foot stay up on the pedal. When Yahweh made me, boy, it made me special. Adding faith with the work will make me successful. Nigga, take a look. What I'm willing to sacrifice ain't no measure. Got my guard up for devils, cause they gon' test you. I've been feeling the pain, now I feel the pressure. Got into with a higher power, no pressure.
No pressure, no pressure, no pressure. It ain't no pressure to me. No, 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 no. No pressure.
No pressure, no pressure, no pressure.
It ain't no pressure to me.
No pressure,
No pressure, no pressure. No pressure, no pressure. Yeah. Full flow, no build up. I'm in motion like Mayim. Look at me. It took me a while, had to look and see all the brighter days right in front of me. The picture's more clearer, don't hand me no mirror. I look through the glass cause my vision is purer in HD. I search for the truth and you hate me? That's so fake, G. I need better there. Shalom leka, I need Loro, say that they can shine. Be'ata aki anakum mispaka, we akim bashim, Shel Abraham. They want us divided, we stay at each other, but we say we building a nation. But where is the building? Cause everyone's waiting, no initiative, just procrastination. The government want me to be in rotation, but I can't clock in cause I ain't got the patience. My time is too precious to waste on plantations. I depend on Yahuwah, that's my salvation. Elevation come with meditation, hella dedication. Torah, that's my destination. Have to change my mind, reset my calibration, check my calculations. Yeah, it's looking gravy. I don't see through the eyes of the victimized. I really concur, that's by who you despise. Let's focus on crashing the system, repairing the minds of our people. No compromise in the fast lane. With my foot on the pedal, I'm mashing gas. They think that they the person, say we the last. When I breeze past, ain't no need to laugh. You can't apply no pressure. No pressure, no pressure. It ain't no pressure to me. No, no, no. No pressure. It ain't no pressure to me. No pressure, no pressure, no pressure, no pressure. No, no pressure. No, no, no. It ain't no pressure to me. No pressure. It ain't no pressure to me. No pressure, no pressure, no pressure. Yeah, that was No Pressure by Moret Maccabee featuring Moetan. For those of y'all that's familiar with Moetan, make sure y'all go check out his track, Ani Olech, I'm Gone. I think it's probably one of the first, I want to say, maybe it is, I think it was one that was done in Lashawan Kadash. I'm not sure if it was fully done throughout the whole song. Might have been. But check out Ani Olech by Moetan. The whole track is in Hebrew. Whole track. Ridiculous. Welcome back to YAH Conscious Radio. For those that's just tuning in, well, if it's not YAH Conscious, then it's not acceptable. I want to point out something that was brought out by Prince Israel. He has said spirituality, the lack of. So the lack of spirituality can cause a man not to desire his wife. And I think it's fair to say, and I know, we speaking on topics. I do want to make sure we do this, that we stay on the topic, on the individual. It's just hard for me not to be balanced, but I'm gonna work on that. But I'm going to say, to be fair, there are women out there that need that spirituality from their man as well. But that's a perfect point that Prince Israel brought out. So let's go ahead and go to the last topic. Did you have some? Did y'all have something to say before I get started with the next one? I saw a hand up, I thought.
No, I was popping them in.
All right, gotcha. Last one. All right, so have men and women in the truth lost the desire to be like our forefathers and foremothers were to one another? So have men and women in the truth lost the desire to be like our forefathers and foremothers
how they were to one another. Now, this could be said the so-called Black community in general, if y'all want to, or we could just keep it within the truth. So, if you want to speak on both, that's fine. Go ahead. Whoever want to go ahead and start it off. Chief, you got it.
Oh, okay. I thought Guevara Sharon was about to hammer us in. So
you know, I got to flip it on y'all, man. Got to switch it up sometimes.
Yeah,
I go left. Toss it right sometimes.
I think being that you added the Hebrew Israelite paradigm into that discussion, I'll say that for conscious Hebrew Israelites, I don't think that they've lost the desire to be like their fault, because as Israelites, once you lose the desire to be like your forefathers and your foremothers, what is the point of even being in this covenant? You might as well just go back to the streets if you're not striving to do what our forefathers did. So we have as conscious Israelites, we have a unique perspective in this. We're operating with a different skill set. When we look at our ancestors, we understand the viability of what they did, men and women. That's why every day when we open up the book, we're doing it for what? We're not doing it, for our health. Like it says, oh yeah, let me just go ahead and do it. No, we're doing it because we have to figure out what is it that they did in their times that created successful examples for us. What did they do, and what do I have to do to emulate that? Not necessarily emulate them and be a remix of these individuals, but to extract what they gave us and say, now how can I apply that to my life and be successful and make the people around me be successful in these areas? So we have a different, a different and a unique perspective when it comes to that. As far as African American people generally, I think it's the exact opposite. I don't think they have a desire to be like, as much as we like to say it, that people like to say it, I don't think that they really have a desire to be like those that came before us, because again, those were different times. You hear African American women, and it's almost ad nauseum when you hear this. When you hear people say, I ain't trying to step back into the 50s. And you're like, well, what was happening in the 50s that is so repulsive? And you realize that there's a certain narrative that goes with that or whatever. And maybe on a different episode we can delve into it deeper. But I just don't think I don't think for the standard or the average African American today, I don't think, especially with the women, the men almost seem indifferent, I guess, but the women are not necessarily trying to go backwards to do what their grandmothers or great grandmothers are doing, because to do that, it would strip them of the power that has been, or the illusion of power that's been given to them via white women's lib. So they're, that power that they have now, the power to go out and speak what they want to speak and do what they want to do and sleep how they want to sleep and all these things, to step backwards and say, hey, I'm going to give all of this up to go live like my great grandmother. I don't know if it's viable for them today. It just doesn't work for them. So I don't know. It's complicated again, because Israelites are a little bit different. We're always trying to look backwards and and try to do what our ancestors did, what our forefathers did, what our foremothers did, because clearly they understood what they had to do. Many of them succeeded, many of them did not succeed, but we learned from that. So we're always looking backwards for that inspiration. But as far as the African American community, generally, I don't think it's something that they're really aiming for anymore. So that's my vantage point on that.
I'm gonna go ahead and rotate us a little bit. I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna let you close yours out, Kabeta Sharon, if that's okay. Man, this is a good one. I will have to agree with the points that you brought out, Chief. For the most part, even those that are within the truth, within our culture, that is outlandish. I posted about this earlier on Facebook. Even those that are outlandish in the doctrinal messages being pushed out there, I think ultimately they still, whether you're a fishbowl or you're not fishbowl, they still do want to, carry out what their forefathers and foremothers did, on different levels. Now, I would say that's on a large scale. So I'm not gonna go and say bring out the smaller scale too, but ultimately I think Now the so-called Black community, I would have to say the same. I think that the lack of, and I could put this in the truth as well too, man. Like I know I don't know everyone in the truth. I know I haven't been, across every camp or every congregation or Knesset or community. And I'm gonna be fair when I say this, because I was about to say I don't think that everyone wants to observe the culture in its entirety. But instead of saying it, I would say I don't think that everyone has the knowledge of our culture in enough capacity to operate on a consistent across the board level. So when you're thinking about other cultures, whether you Jewish, Arabic, or Chinese, like they have a rich culture and a rich understanding of their culture. So I have to be fair, and I have to be fair and say that those of us in the truth is fairly new over here in the States. So, we're still learning. I think me and you spoke on that, Chief. But as far as the so-called Black community, I think it's a lack of taking a page out of Prince Israel's book. I'm going to say a lack of desire of culture. He says spirituality in regards to the desire, why we lose desire of the woman. I would say as far as the desire of not wanting to carry out our forefathers or foremothers, I would say it's a lack of desire in culture. We like this free, willy-nilly culture, which we see is not helping us ultimately. So that's my point. Really didn't have nothing spectacular to say about it, but I just really want to push that desire part. If you notice, for the most part in most of these questions, I put desire in there. And I did that for a reason. I think that I see you, Chief. I think that, us having the knowledge is one thing, of speaking the knowledge is one thing. Us wanting marriage is one thing. Us wanting to say husband and wife is one thing, but that desire is something totally different when it comes to these subjects and the success thereof. So with that, I yield. I kind of pushed out my solution already, but I'm gonna pass the mic to the better Tyrone.
Kane, I would have to agree with you all. I do see if I would have to use Facebook as a large platform to make this, to make this observation, I would have to say, I do see a lot of people, we do in truth that hasn't lost the desire to be like our foremothers and forefathers, our righteous forefathers and foremothers. That's because it's nothing new under the sun. We was a hot mess then, and we are a hot mess now. Right. However, I do see that a lot of our people in truth are trying to hold on to the desire to be our foremothers, to be like our forefathers and our foremothers. Just by the last Kwadosh days that has been happening, I love the harmony. And even though we don't observe all the days on the same days, the same times, I love the harmony. I love the unified harmony in which we try to strive to keep our Kwadosh days. As far as trying to strive to keep the Shabbat days, I love the unified harmony in that. Posting scriptures and talking scriptures and, talking about this Torah Monday through Friday on Facebook on a platform. I see the unified harmony in that. Sometimes it can be a little tense, because Torah brings out the foolishness in our people. It brings out the new doctrines in our people, you know. But however, on a larger scale, that's one thing that I do see with people in truth, that yes, we are already trying to strive to be like our forefathers and foremothers. Even though throughout the process we may fail, you know, we may come through some hiccups in the road where we may not, you know, implement it just 100%, you know, just yet. But however, we are striving, and I think that is what's most important. You know, that's what's most important. Yeah, I really don't have no spectacular answer to that either. You know, but one thing that I can say, Moray, that you brought out, in the Black community, we have lost the desire of culture. Mm-hmm. You know, we have in our culture, well, in the Black community culture and Black culture, when it comes to disagreements in our communities, you know, we don't care. We don't have any rules anymore. We shooting women and children now. You know,
yeah.
You know, so that's something to gain and to put into perspective as well. You know, we lost sense of just culture all across the board in the Black community without the truth. You know, let's put the consciousness and the truth aside. But in the Black community, we lost sense of a lot of things. You know, we use profanity in front of our elders. When our elders get on the bus, we don't stand up for our elders no more and let them sit down. We don't even help our women with the groceries anymore, you know? So it's a lot of Black culture that we have lost sense of, but our truth, that we know it, I can see the desire, and I can see the, you know, I can see the wanting to be like our foremothers and forefathers. We're trying, you know, we ready to go home for those who know, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, oh no, go ahead, Mark.
No, go ahead, Chief. I wasn't gonna say that. Go ahead, you good?
Oh no, just to just kind of land backing off the of what Barrett Sharon said, as far as the desire, and that's why I said that we're in a very unique, as Hebrew Israelites, we're in a very unique position, because when you look at the average African American, their understanding of culture and their understanding of ethics goes back, in many cases, goes back no further than 50 years. Like if you ever like listen to the standard African American, you know, having dialogue with each other, and when they start talking about Black culture, if you listen very closely, they really don't know what they're talking about, because there's no roots to the culture that they're talking. Like, for instance, I'm 46 years old, right? I'm old enough to remember the very beginning of hip hop, the very beginning. Okay. You know what I'm saying? So I've seen all the generations of hip hop. So when you hear African Americans talking about, oh, you know, hip hop culture and, you know, this and this, and it, on one hand, it sounds good, because you're like, yeah, you know, I remember when, you know, breakdancing and, you know, writing graffiti and all that stuff, and there's a certain nostalgia to it. But when you think about it, you're like, well, but that culture only goes back 40-something years. Almost 50. It only goes back 50. I mean, you know, hip hop, generally, they say 1974. Give or take a year or two, but generally 74. So you're talking about almost 50 years. Outside of that, if you try to take anybody into a conversation prior to the hip hop generation, what happens? They get stumped, because there's no real roots. You might see them kind of groping at noonday, so to speak. When it comes, they'll say, oh, well, you know, hip hop comes from soul music, and okay, it comes from funk, and it's like, okay, cool. But if you notice, the culture never goes beyond the shores of America. Yeah. Because the African American experience is not designed to take you outside of your captivity. It's designed to keep you in the captivity and to build subcultures that emanate from the captivity. It never takes you beyond. It never sends you. I mean, when was the last time you ever heard someone talk about hip hop and they're like, yeah, you know, back in the days, you know, when we were in ancient Babylon, you know, we were doing music. No one talks about ancient Babylon in reference, because African Americans in general don't have a connection to anything really beyond their captivity. This is why they still use the terms African in reference to their ancestors. And it's like, well, Africans don't even call themselves Africans. They call themselves by their tribal designations, their national designations, their clans, their families, and things of that nature. As Israelites, we have in our hands, look right back there, in our hands, we have texts. We have literature that transports us back 4,000 years.
That's right.
And, you know, and of course, and sooner than that, but takes us back to at least 2,000 years ago, takes us back to 3,000, 4,000. We have all of this literature at our disposal. And now we can say, okay, we now have something that'll allow us to leave mentally and spiritually, leave the shores of America and go back to a time in which we had control over culture, that our culture was genuinely ours and not the byproduct of our captors.
Yeah.
So for us, it's a completely different experience. And like the sister Sharon said, we strive to do it. We might fail at times. We might stumble and not really fully understanding how to implement the culture. And I think you brought that out as well, Maury, not knowing how to implement the culture, but at least we have it. The average African American is operating with nothing, and we know because you could just look at the results.
I want to jump in and say this because Gabetta Sharon brought out something very important, and I know she knows what she brought out. It was very important. When so-called Black people, African Americans, when we speak on culture, the first thing that pop up is like what you said, hip hop. That's like the top thing. If I talk about anything, if I go to 10 Black people right now, or so-called Black people right now, and I say, man, what culture we got? Oh, we got hip hop. That's the first thing. I lie to you not. But the beautiful thing about what she brought out was this. And when you think about what she brought out, it goes back within our Torah. The standing up when elders come in. What's that, Leviticus 19, something like that? It's in there, 19, 18. She brought out as far as mothers and children basically not getting killed. You know what I'm saying? Right. We prevented that as far as certain things within our Torah. The men was the front line. It's like it was there past 50 years ago. You know what I'm saying? As far as once that 50-year mark hit, what you was talking about, and hip hop came into play, that stuff started going away bit by bit. Now, granted, you know, when you think about the Black Panther Party, all that stuff, they still was, you know, even the gangs. I mean, I'm not big on the gangs like that, but even the gangs, they protected it. But it still started dwindling, though, is my point. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Absolutely.
Within those decades or that time frame. But what she brought out, I thought it was amazing. And I wanted to pinpoint that because for those that might be watching, if you aren't a part of the truth right now, I want you to think about even not having the knowledge that we might have or the history and understanding that we might have. Our great grandfathers and great grandmothers, they did have that essence of the culture that benefited and helped for our success. Hence, in my opinion, longer marriages, you know what I'm saying? They had things that they did that was pulled from our literature, from our culture, from our past. And some did it naturally because it was embedded in us from birth, from our grandparents and parents before us, and it just kept going. And that's kind of like when we think of our literature, think of our culture, that's what culture is. It's passed on. So I love the fact that she brought that out. I think that was amazing to add into what you had said. What I want to do is ask if it's anything y'all want to bring out as far as a solution for this first part of why is it so hard being married, because I believe we're going to have more topics that's going to be associated with it. And before y'all do it, I want to make sure we send a prayer out to Gabetta Kathy. She wasn't able to make it today. Not feeling too well. We was missing the panelists. We miss you. If you're watching this, look forward to having you next week. And with that, I yield. I want to pass it to you all to close out. Once y'all close out, I'm gonna play the last song, and then we out.
Also, I wanna bring some balance and say that a lot of our women lost sense of culture as well. Not in but African American, lost sense of culture as well. We feel like we can talk or treat our men any type of way, but we still ask for their protection. We can cuss our men out, or we can say you're not my father, or you don't run my life, or you ain't my husband. But we still try to ask for their protection and administer their protection unto us when we need them. So it's like we have to understand that, okay, if we want the African American men to protect us in our community, we also we can't become haughty, and then ask for their protection as well. And I say that because I did a survey about that before, and a lot of men say, well, women, they don't want us in their business. They feel like, they don't want us, they be telling us mind our business, we ain't their father, but they be, wanting us to protect them on the same token, Also, I see that in our African American community is that a lot of women position themselves in men business. I don't know if y'all see that it's a wave of women being killed these days as well, because they are amongst the men, administrating men business amongst, the men. So a lot of women are, I had to hold my fellow sister accountable as well of why the African community, the Black African community culture, communities, our culture is, it's dwindling down. We both sides got to play their role, and it's like we lost sense of that as well.
Okay, I appreciate the balance. I appreciate you continue bringing that balance. I hope. Hallelujah. Chief, you got any last words before we play this last song and close out?
Hey, not just. I mean, I think we've covered pretty much everything that needs to be covered, at least in relatively speaking. But I think that going back as far as the solutions to as far as why marriage is hard. Again, what I said in the beginning, I still stand with that. That it's not the issue of marriage. Marriage is not hard. We know this because people get married every day. Our ancestors were married for decades and decades and decades or whatever. So obviously it's not the marriage that's difficult. It is what's happening in the marriage. It's not the institution that's the problem. It is the work or lack thereof that can cause it to be difficult or a smooth ride. I think for the African American community, it's really hard to say what the solution is because they're operating from a platform that has no concrete rules. There's no concrete ethics in African American marital relations. It's pretty much just winging it. They're just like, hey, we get it's backwards. We'll have sex, and then after we have sex, then we'll figure out if we can be together. It's like, so the African American community generally is operating from a no rule or no protocol type of platform, which makes identifying the problems and solving them very difficult, if not impossible. For us, again, because we have the Torah, we have the text, we have the history. The solution is very clear for us. So I think in order to I guess somewhat solve the African American the general African American problems, they have to be introduced and or reintroduced to that which we have in our possession. They have to be made aware of the Most High Yah. They have to be made aware of their culture, their laws, commandments, judgments, statutes, ordinances, and testimonies. Because these are the solutions. This is the solution that help wake me up and get my head right and help get other brothers and other sisters' heads right. So I think it kind of goes back to what we're chosen and called to do. We got to get to our people and start showing them that there is in fact an option, and a better option than what has been offered them in the society. So,
Hallelujah. Well, I appreciate that, Chief Zabulan and Achot Geberet Sharon. For those that's tuning in, man, please make sure you hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed today's conversation. We are here every Yom Hamashi, every Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Leave in the comment section any topics that you might want us to speak on, dive into or delve into, and we will talk about it. Make sure you subscribe. Like I said, this is YAH Conscience Radio. Well, if it's not YAH Conscience, it is not acceptable. Subscribe, like, and share. Last song of the evening, it is by none other. You know I got to put Hebrew in it, man. I got to put Hebrew in it. Another song by our brother from Ben Blackwell from Damona. For those brothers that, you know, don't like the quote-unquote modern Hebrew, man, please inbox me on Facebook and we could break bread on the topic, man. We could talk about all the different forms. But until then, enjoy this song. Shalom. Shalom.
Hallelujah. Shalom. Shalom.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
In another one. Yeah, and it goes. כמה זמן לקח לי רק כדי לכבוש אותך וכמה זמן נפלתי כדי לחיות ברמה שלה קדימה, קדימה, go, go, go קדימה די עזבי אותי קדימה, קדימה, go, go, go את רואה שכבר לא מסתדר נו כבר קדימה, קדימה, go, go, go קדימה די עזבי אותי קדימה, קדימה, go, go, go את רואה שכבר לא מסתדר נו כבר לכי ממי אני לא נושם כבר נפלתי לא יכול יותר אני לא מחפש לריב נמאס לי כבר יאללה ביי קדימה צילי מחיי משקיע את כל מה שיש בתוך הלב מרוויח עולם שצער והרבה כאב מרחם עלייך כי הגלגל לא תסתובב הגלגל לא תסתובב זוכר את הלילות, זוכר את המילים שגרמו למריבות זוכר את השקרים שהתחפשו כהבטחות זוכר שלבד גם אפשר לחיות אבל עזבי שטויות בינתיים פה יושב מוחק את העבר המערכת יחסים הפכה עבר וזה בסדר מצידי כל עוד האש בוערת לא ירד שלג בליבי ביי היה פעם קשר רציני עכשיו הקשר רק מזיק כי הקשר לא בריא לאהבה אין צומי בשבילי עד שמצאתי אהבה כבר איבדתי את עצמי ניסינו מיליון פעם ולא עבר ליבך כבר לא נמצא אצלי ביד לא האמנתי מההתחלה הגעתי לטופ האוטו שלי לבד One time F-A-M-O כמה זמן לקח לי רק כדי לכבוש אותך וכמה זמן נפלתי כדי לחיות ברמה שלה קדימה, קדימה, go, go, go קדימה די עזבי אותי קדימה, קדימה, go, go, go את רואה שכבר לא מסתדר נו כבר קדימה, קדימה, go, go, go קדימה די עזבי אותי קדימה, קדימה, go, go, go את רואה שכבר לא מסתדר נו כבר לכי ממי אני לא נושם כבר נפלתי לא יכול יותר אני לא מחפש לריב נמאס לי כבר יאללה ביי קדימה צילי מחיי
תגידי כמה פעמים כבר ניהלנו את השיחה הזו לא זוכר וכמה פעמים כבר נכנסנו לפינה הזו וואלה לא סופר המבוי סתום כבר ניסינו הכל ולא השגנו מאום הכביש חסום לא יעזור כלום איתנו זה תמיד נגמר בבום הלכנו לסרט ושתק כל הדרך את לא מדברת גם בארוחת ערב כל כך רחוקה ומנוכרת זה ככה כבר חצי שנה בערך אני לא פולט מה שאת משדרת אולי פשוט כדאי שנשחרר נעזוב הכל ונוותר מה שהיה כבר לא יהיה יותר בואי נעצור לפני שזה מידרדר שיהיה לפחות נעים להיזכר הזמנים שהיה לנו טוב, לפני שהכל התחיל לכאוב, חשבנו שנהיה ביחד עד הסוף, עד הסוף. בזמנים שהרגשנו אני רואה את המבט בעינייך, מותק להמשיך, לא כדאי בי, אבל לא אולי הגיע הזמן לומר לך ביי.
כמה זמן לקח לי רק כדי לכבוש אותך, וכמה זמן נפלתי, כמה זמן כדי לחיות ברמה שלה. קדימה, קדימה, go, go, go. קדימה, די עזבי אותי. קדימה, קדימה, go, go, go. את רואה שכבר לא מסתדר, לא כבר. קדימה, קדימה, go, go, go. קדימה, די עזבי אותי. קדימה, קדימה, go, go, go. את רואה שכבר לא מסתדר, לא כבר. לכי, ממי, אני לא נושם, כבר נפלתי, לא יכול יותר, אני לא מחפש לריב, נמאס לי כבר, יאללה ביי, קדימה צילי מחיי. פאפאי, 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 קדימה, קדימה, פאפאי, 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 קדימה, קדימה.